Oh Vishruth, this video is not gonna work. This has potential for two things. One, YouTube doesn't push it because we're gonna be discussing very sensitive topics. And two, somebody kills us because we're gonna be discussing government, democracy, and freedom of speech. Welcome to Battle Zone. We are Thought Bistro. We help businesses make their ads work by breaking down the world in its fundamental pieces.
We each bring an opinion to the table, and then it's fight or flight.
So Vishruth, what do you have for me?
In India, freedom of speech and expression is a fundamental right, but it's not an absolute and can be subject to reasonable restrictions for the interests of national security, public order, and other legitimate purposes. Akhil, I believe that's a load of crap. In India, in the world, freedom of speech does not exist.
That's a fairly extreme view. I feel there are two sides of every coin. I want to hear your part about it.
I think this term freedom of speech is used when convenient by anyone and everyone, especially those in power. The moment it is something to do with what does not suit the status quo, what does not suit the person sitting at the top of the pyramid, no longer freedom of speech that exists. And in the words of Veer Das, we control that who we think we can control. So pollution, something I can't control. It hurts my feelings, but I can't do anything about it. Somebody goes and sits in front of a building saying that, hey, what you're doing is wrong. Suddenly that is no, this cannot be done. This is not your freedom of speech. Your freedom of speech does not allow you to go and speak against people in power.
Let's assume what you say is true. Yeah? Every country would either be fascist or a monarchy. Every country would be run by the same people over and over again with no hope of change. Don't you feel that the whole establishment of democracy over the past X 100 years and for India over the past X 10 years does dictate that freedom of speech exists to a certain extent because powers have changed hands multiple times?
Akhil, my question is this certain extent. What is certain extent? I feel, again, that is where I use the word convenient. Certain extent has a very convenient way of being an extent that you may define, that I may define, that a third party may define. Who is to define here that we are not offending each other? That is our personal decision. It is a certain extent. It is a limit that we have imposed on people. Someone I don't know can probably offend me faster than someone I do know because that limit, that certain extent, is shorter for some person and longer for another person. Pretty similar with freedom of speech. Is that where we're dumbing it down to, that today the amount that you and I can talk is not governed by us, or what we can talk about is not governed by us, but some external power who is at play, who is deciding what that certain extent is today?
Yeah, so I had a math professor. Okay, his name is Majid Khan. The dude is my favorite professor of all time because of this one sentence he told me. Okay, he told me, when you don't understand anything, data को छोटा करके देखो या फिर डेटा को बहुत बड़ा करके देखो. दोनों में से एक सिनेरियो में समझ आ जाए. Okay, let's डेटा को छोटा करो. In football, we have this new thing called VAR, Video Assistant Referee. Cool. Now, that has something called probable cause, which says that if on the edge or if the decision is not very clear, then the on-field decision should stand. Never happens. Okay, like there are very thin lines drawn, very thin decisions here or there which are very, very wrong, but the referee in power at the time gets to decide whether it was the right decision or not. In cricket, we have third umpire. And then we have this Hawkeye decision in which the ball goes, hits the wicket, and if there is umpire's call, then it's umpire's call and you don't even lose the review, right? Point of the matter is, the existence of free speech does have two extreme sides to it. On one end, any system can be destroyed because the nature of society demands it for there to be chaos. Okay? Chaos is the normal. Anything that is well built is not the normal. Cool. To prevent chaos, there are some barriers put in place. which we call to a certain extent. But the malpractice of that certain extent is very real by the people in power. But does that mean freedom of speech by itself is a complete scam? What do you think?
Going back to using the same football and cricket example that you used, one place the decision is happening, technology is being used, and there's an outcome that is being reached. Comes before the technology, not after. Second place, there is human, there is technology, and then there is human again. One place there is a whole lot more debate than the other because this certain extent is not defined. And this is what creates outcry everywhere. Today, you and I watch a lot of football matches where we are like, okay, that is a marginal decision. And in our game, that decision went against us, but in this game, it is not. See, with freedom of speech, I feel when it suits a particular person, it is okay. When it does not, it is not. Today, what is happening across universities in the US today, what is happening in India, there is so many instances that we see all over the world. Some people would say that even the other way. Today, please use your powers of influence. But that's being condemned. That's being stopped. What is the point of it all?
Does the majority decide? Does the whole current system allow the majority to decide which, like in the gray space, which side is black?
It doesn't, right? And that's why we talk about democracy being flawed. That's why we talk about democracy being uninformed.
Let's go with my opinion for the day. My opinion for the day is that democracy as it has developed has just become a chase for sports teams. It is just a scam.
Well, I will take it back to where we started this discussion. If it is a scam, then why are we not living in a world of fascists and monarchs, and socialists and communists?
Are we not? Let's take the world view for once. Okay, right now, Mr. Modi has been Prime Minister of India for north of 10 years, 12 years, 13 years. That's somewhere there, right? Mr. Trump is back. Despite the horrible governance that was happening, comes back into power. Trump comes back into power and does things that are unheard of, completely non-democratic. Pulling out things from 1980s, the Alien Criminal Act, right, which says that anybody can be thrown out of the country because we are at war with them. Okay, cool. Nothing. Takes a billionaire in the form of Elon Musk, puts him in power for government. That fires people who are responsible for the nuclear protection and the nuclear warheads of the country. Fire them, 3 days later have to come back and be like, no, we didn't mean to fire you, you can come back to your job. These guys don't have consequences. Not having consequences is what I feel a monarchy or a fascist government is about. Russia, Korea, North Korea, even South Korea, what happened in the middle. Now, India, US, aren't these monarchies? Aren't these questionable democracies now?
Akhil, if that were the case, would there have been a period of Joe Biden coming in for 4 years? Would there now be a thing where the next term it is going to be somebody different for the US? When we look at India, India had elections in 2024 and people were expecting the ruling party to win by leaps and bounds, and there was a significant setback that they faced when you look at the number of seats that they won and who they had to collude with and what kind of collude is the wrong word, who they had to form a coalition with to then form a government, to then gain the majority in the Lok Sabha. If democracy did not exist, would we even be having these kind of ups and downs? Would we even be having any kind of trade talks in the world, any kind of, all of these joint activities that are going on, the G20 summit, all of these fantastic initiatives that are being taken in terms of climate, in terms of how we as a population need to fight against deforestation, global warming, all of these massive issues.
I love the word ruling party, right? The word suggests that they rule, okay? Now, I am not the most well-versed person when it comes to politics. I am more business fundamentals, economics, microeconomics, macroeconomics. That's my zone of expertise. But let's have a discussion. Everything that matters has a cause and an effect cycle. Things that don't matter become very nice points of discussion, but there is no cause and effect cycle. Cool. What I mean by that? How many votes did somebody win by? How many seats did somebody get? Defines how good my democracy is? No. Were the decisions made because of discussions of policy? because of discussions of what will happen in the country, because of discussions of how is something going to change, what change will be brought, how legitimate are the claims that are being made by these people who want to get into power, right? It's not required though. You know, we work in advertising. 80% of sales are made on feel. Hey, here's the cold hard truth. If you can make the buyer feel special, feel like you will solve a problem for them, they buy. Okay? Not on logic, on feel. Ab ki baar Modi Sarkar, or saying that 2031 ka India, and just pushing that timeline to 2035 and then saying 2040 and whatever, whatnot. That is all feel. I am in no position to say whether steps are being taken to make India better, to make Canada better, to make the US better. And many things are internal. But the discussion here is that as a voter, I have to define myself whether my family is a Congress supporter or a BJP supporter. In the US, I actually sign myself as a Republican or a Democrat. And in Canada, you sign yourself as a liberal or a conservative. If I am a Manchester United fan and I like Manchester City's policies, will I vote them into power? Hell no. Because I have to make my team win. And if my child wishes to go against me, again, there's going to be backlash from the family, and family matters a lot in India. So if my
family matters a lot in the world.
So if my family is a BJP supporter and I go out and vote for the Democrats, then what's going to happen? That is where I talk about sports teams. I'm just rooting for my team, watching the numbers go up. We won by 1 goal. The final was so intense. If my team was not good, would the score be 2-1? Who cares? I got the Champions League, no? Now, tell me this. Do you believe that this is the best system for a country to run at its optimal level?
Guys, we are not politicians. We have no clue what is going on. So please do not kill us. We're just two guys having a conversation. We would love your opinions. Get in the comments below. Tell us what you feel about freedom of speech. Tell us what you feel about a democracy. And what would you say is the best way to run this country, or the best system to run this country?